Welcome to the Band of One podcast. I am Riley Wilson, and this podcast is designed for anybody that wants to be a solo performer or become a more successful solo performer. I've got over 50 years of experience as a live performer, and I'll not only share the things that I've learned in that time, but also the advice from other top pros who've done the same thing in their neck of the woods. My goal with the entire process is to make this actionable and fun. So I hope if you like it, please share it, and let's get going. Today I've got a good friend with me that has influenced a lot of the things I've done over the years, Mr. John Byron Haynie. Byron, welcome.
Hey, Riley, how you doing?
Man.
I'm sorry it took so long to get this figured out, but this is my first ever Zoom meeting.
Well, that's terrific. That's terrific. Oh, the blessings of technology. All right. Well, let's begin at the beginning. First of all, for those folks that are from outside Texas or outside the United States of America, tell us a little bit about your story, kind of what got you into what you're doing. I know that you play the guitar and sing, and you do solo shows like I do, but you also do band shows as well. Because what kind of started this whole thing rolling, man?
Well, believe it or not, I always loved to sing. When I was a baby, my mother used to have to sing me bedtime stories rather than just tell me the story. And later on in life, I said, "Well, how did you do that?" She said, "I just made up a melody, the Three Bears or Goldilocks or whatever." And so I was always liked music, and then grew up in the era of the Beatles, and I loved the Beatles, and I got into Glenn Campbell, and my father was always a country music fan, so I grew up in like Johnny Horton and Bob Wills and people like that. But it wasn't until John Denver came along that I wanted to learn to sing his songs, because he sang about Colorado, and I loved Colorado. I went to Colorado when I was 9 years old and thought it was beautiful. And then John Denver came out with Rocky Mountain High, and I said, I'm going to learn how to play John Denver songs. So I picked up the guitar, and I got me a Mel Bay guitar book. You familiar with Mel Bay?
I have taught that book for many years, yes.
Okay. Songs like On Top of Old Smoky and Red River Valley and things like that. That's how I learned how to play. And then eventually I would go and go buy songbooks that had the guitar chords in them. And I got John Denver music and stuff, and started learning, country roads and living on a jet plane and songs like that. And then his music led me to more artists like John Prine, and of course in Texas, people like Willie Nelson, and that's how I got started. I just learned how to play guitar like that. I never progressed basically past just making chords. I'm not a lead player by no means. I just started making using it as a company to myself, a company to my singing, and that's basically how I got started right there. And
that's wonderful. When did you start? Here's a question: when did you start playing shows?
Well, let's see. I had my first professional gig when I was 17.
Wow!
I won a talent contest, a big talent contest that was sponsored by WBAP Radio in Fort Worth. That's when WBAP was still playing country music, and I won the male vocalist division when I was 17.
Wow, that's a great accomplishment.
Yeah, and the very next night I was invited on the Grapevine Opry with Johnny High and Cheeside Childs, and became a member of the Opry. So I guess that may have really been my first professional show.
Hey, quick question. Can we talk about the Grapevine Opry? Because people that aren't from the DFW or really from Texas area wouldn't understand about that. But that was a big deal. If I'm not mistaken, Leanne Rimes was performing there before she got her national recording contract. And maybe tell people a little bit about what a big deal that was for a guy that was just
Grapevine Opry was located in, I can't remember, it was the Palace Theater. It's downtown Grapevine. The theater's still there. I don't think they do the Opry anymore, but it was basically a mini Grand Ole Opry, and they did two shows on Saturday night. I think at like 6 o'clock, and I think again at maybe 9 o'clock, and it would just pack them in. And the hosts were Johnny High and a lady named Cheeside Childs, and they were really good people, and they just loved country music, and they had. Johnny's passed away now, but he dressed in the nudie suits like Porter Wagner, the rhinestones and the sequins and everything. And those,
I love those.
But it was a family show. Cheeside kind of had control over all the music. I remember one time I wanted to sing Margaritaville, and she wouldn't let me because it was about margaritas. So it was a family-oriented show. And then it lasted for several years. Chisai moved away. I think she went to Branson, Missouri to do a show. And then Johnny left Grapevine and opened up Johnny High's Country Music Review over at Texas Hall in University of Texas at Arlington. Now that's where I heard that Leanne Rimes first came on board. Was Johnny High's Country Music Review in Arlington.
And then the two of them were corrected.
I met a lot of people. I learned a lot about showmanship and how to perform, really by performing on the Opry. I credit that a lot.
Well, let me ask this question: were you doing these shows with a band behind you, or just you and the guitar out there in the middle of the stage?
No, they had a house band. Opry had a house. You get there in the afternoon, I think about 3 o'clock or maybe 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and you do 2 songs, and preferably pick a song that they know, some kind of a popular song that they know, of course, country, and they back you up. They had like 2 fiddles and steel and the basic instruments. Just nice people over there, And,
so you're doing this around the time you're wrapping up high school.
Yep, that's about right. I think when I was a junior in high school when I was doing this.
Where did it go from there?
Well, I just started getting more gigs, and I live in Corsicana, which is 50 miles south of Dallas, a little small town, about 25,000 people, and they had a Holiday Inn here, and they heard that I played music, and they wanted to start live music, so I started playing in the Holiday Inn on some Saturday nights, just in the dining room, and that's kind of where I really started honing my craft right there.
Now, here's a question: This is what time period?
76.
Okay.
Probably.
Okay. All right.
I'm 60. I'm 64 now, so it's been
okay.
a while ago.
Okay.
But
you're literally performing after the Johnny High Grapevine Opry experience. You're performing literally right out of high school. And I guess the big question was, because I know you performed with bands, when you did the Holiday Inn thing, was that just you and the guitar?
That was just me and the guitar. And believe me, it was very raw.
Well,
that's before I learned.
Byron, let's talk about that for a moment, because it takes tremendous intestinal fortitude, I'm going to be kind about it here, to do that. And obviously having won an award where you're still, going to high school, that's a big deal. But how did you fortify yourself internally to be able to go out and just stand in front of a bunch of people and sing? That terrified me after I've been playing professionally for 20 years.
I don't know. It just kind of came. It didn't bother me. I guess I think it bothers me more now than it did when I was younger, because I still get butterflies every time I play. Every time I play, I don't care where it is, I still get little butterflies. I don't know, Riley. I used to pantomime records, like I was up there, like an air guitar.
Yeah.
Before air guitar was invented, so I used to practice in front of the mirror and how I would, and my folks, I would pantomime records, and I used to do it's kind of embarrassing, but you remember the comedian Flip Wilson?
Oh, sure.
And he was one, I loved him. He was so funny, and he had a record, a comedy record, and I learned that whole comedy record by heart pretty much. And I would get up there and act like I was Flip Wilson, and I just mimic what he was doing and act. So that kind of loosened me up for that part. Now I wouldn't do that again in front of anybody. But so I guess that's how it had happened. I just it didn't bother me. I just started singing in front of people, and of course I had maybe a list of maybe about 20 songs. And
yeah, let's talk about material for a moment, because if somebody goes to your webpage, which is johnbyronhaney.com, if they go to your webpage,
no, actually it's jbhcountry.com.
Okay, sorry. Anyway, if they go to the webpage, you have an astounding list of numbers of songs, my friend.
Yep, and I have done every one of those songs at one point. Now, some of them I hadn't done in years, so I may need to reshuffle my schedule or my song list a little bit. But I try to pick songs that fits my voice. I have a kind of a laid back style. If you're a country fan, I think I sound a lot like Don Williams. Gordon Lightfoot, rest his soul, was one of my heroes too. So I do a lot of style in his vein.
Well, let's talk about that. Obviously, growing up here in Texas, country music is everywhere, and if you're going to come to Texas and perform and you don't want to do country, you might have a bit of an uphill battle, but that's another podcast for another time.
Yeah.
But you do other stuff than just country, so talk about that a little bit. You mentioned John Denver, and also mentioned Gordon Lightfoot, who are two tremendous, not just singer-songwriters, but really folk pop artists.
Yeah, folk, I guess they call it kind of Americana now, what it would be, but folk music. I do a lot of Eagles and Beatles. I do some Clapton. I can do some Bruno Mars. I've never was, I can do as far as rock and roll. I do a lot of Skinner, do some Bruce Springsteen, a lot of James Taylor. I lost you. Are you there?
I'm still here. We're still here on the Zoom call. We're good.
Just kind of went to sleep there for a minute. I don't have I don't do rock and roll for as the screaming kind of rock and roll with the big high voices. It's just not me. I don't do any blues because I'm not a blues singer. I love the blues, but I just don't do any blues per se because I have too much of a twang in my voice. I just think I tried to do blues one time and it just didn't come off very well.
Well, I think particularly you and I have both been performing for, this is our 5th decade as performers. And I think you eventually figure out, I can do this, but I don't really do that very well. And I guess the other question, let's talk about how you physically do your show. You mentioned singing and acoustic guitar. Do you do loops or a drum machine or anything at all like that? Do you just play the guitar and sing?
I did. I used to use a drum machine years ago. It just kept the beat. I just played along with it. And then I started doing shows with tracks, like karaoke tracks, I guess you
right.
say. And then I just got out of that. Now all I do is just me and the guitar. I do have a looper. I bought a looper, but I have no idea how to operate it. So I just sit and start strumming. And sometimes I'll have a little harmonizer on my vocals, but I don't use that often. It's just me and my guitar.
Well, it's interesting. David Crosby was asked one time about that, well, what's your real talent? And he pointed at his throat.
Yeah.
And I think I'm going to ask you the same question I asked my old buddy Yancey Stevens, and I think I know the answer to this, but I'll let you. What's more important to your show, your singing or your guitar?
Oh, my singing. My voice is my instrument. I'm just like say I wish I could play lead. I never learned lead. I don't even know scales on the guitar. I have no clue. I just make the hillbilly G, C, D and use a capo extensively. But I'm a dang good rhythm player. And I can keep time with that. And in fact, that's I've been in several bands over the years, and I've played with some great players, and they taught me a lot about rhythm and how to keep play good rhythm guitar. But getting back to your original question, yeah, it's my vocals. I get more compliments on my singing than I do my guitar playing, for sure. So.
And it's interesting. Yancey's a graduate of UNT, and of course, I think it was North Texas State when he graduated in '79. I went to GIT in Hollywood, or Musicians Institute, whatever you call it. And people always make a bigger deal about, well, you sing, but the singing is always the number one thing. And I've mentioned here on the podcast, for those folks that are just like a piano player or an instrumentalist like a sax player or trumpet player like that, make sure that whatever your main thing is that you're doing is as good as it possibly can be. And it sounds like that's exactly what you're doing. Would you agree with that?
I totally agree with that. I've been blessed, and because I never made it big time. I tried for a while. I went to Nashville and kicked around for a few years and couldn't make it work, so I came back to Texas. But it's still my passion to play. It's really all I know how to do. It's just plain sing, and I love doing what I do. Now, sometimes I think, man, I got to go play a gig tonight. I don't feel good, but it's no cliche. The show must go on. And sometimes I have to bite the bullet and just go do it and do the show.
Absolutely. Let's talk about it sounds like the booking part of that. I won't say that it almost happened for you automatically, but you've done a lot of work over the years. We're both on what used to be Gig Masters, The Bash. We're both on Gig Salad. How much of the stuff that you book today in 2023 are these online casting sites, and how much of it you book yourself or with another agent?
I book mostly myself. Now I'm a member of the Bash, like you said, and I think I just did a show in Oklahoma City night before last, so I got a gig off the Bash. But mostly I book myself. I do work with one booking agent that books me into retirement communities.
Mm-hmm.
Not all the retirement communities I play. He has some. He has one in Austin and Temple and Bryan and up in Keller, and he'll call me to do some gigs like that. But most of it's all me. You know, I've worked with booking agents over the years, but most of the bookings I do right now it's just me. I just get online or get on the phone and call them and get a email address or a messenger and Facebook, and I send them my web page and send them some video samples I've done, some audio samples, and that's how I get my gigs.
Wonderful. Let me ask you a question.
A lot of word of mouth too.
Yeah, because obviously at this point you've got a reputation.
Yeah. Well, I hope it's a good one. I stay busy, but somebody will see me at a gig and say, hey, I have a restaurant or I have a party coming up and we'd like to book you for this and give me your card.
Sure, absolutely, and that's an important thing that I've stressed many times on our podcast is that if you're going to do this, have some things like have a business card, as we talked about in the episode 9. Have a web page, right? Have something that you can send people to, because I think you probably experience what I have a lot of times. If I'm playing a show and they've already seen me a video, they've already seen the song list, the web page, or reviews, they're predisposed to like me, which is a great thing.
Oh, absolutely. Oh my gosh. I mean, it's amazing the tools that Zoom and Facebook and Twitter and the online that's there for the artists out there now. Now, of course, when I was first starting out, we didn't have all this. And if you wanted to know where we were playing, you either had to call me or get on our mailing list. We'd write you a letter and mail it to you, the snail mail thing. But absolutely, with the videos now and the YouTube, it's just a great tools to have now for musicians out there now. So take advantage of them.
Yeah. So let me go back a little bit. I hate to keep digressing, but I have all these questions. As I said, we've known one another for years. We've booked one another on gigs and stuff, but a lot of the stuff I just don't know. So you went right out of high school, basically became a working musician. Is that right?
Well, I went to college for about 3 years, but I pretty much did. Yeah, I had a couple of bands right out of high school, and then I had a like a little high school band. We'd play on weekends, and then right out of high school, after I got out of college, I just wanted to play music. That's what I wanted to do. I had a cousin, and her name was Paula K. Evans. And Paula sang and won a few talent contests. She was from Garland, same place Leanne Rhymes is from. Well, Paula and I got together and said we want to start a band. So that was my first really professional band that I had, and we called ourselves Canyon Creek, and that's how we got started. And Paula left the band, and we formed another. She came back. We formed another band called Second Wind. And we had a house gig over on Cedar Creek Lake. And Paula left. Paula said, man, I'm just not made for the honky tonks and bars. I want to sing, but I want to do something else. So she moved to Nashville. And I kept the Second Wind band, became the Byron Haynie band. And that's pretty much all I've been doing with that. And of course, Byron Haynie bands no longer exist, but I'm in a couple of different bands right now. But that's how my solo career kind of took off.
Well, and let's talk about that. Contrast playing your solo gigs, which you do quite a bit, as well as band gigs. How does that all fit in?
Oh, it's something, man. Playing with a band can be so much fun because especially you get good players behind you, and it frees up a lot of stuff. I don't have to worry about so much my guitar playing because especially if I got good guitar players behind me or piano players, they can cover my mistakes I make on the guitar. But playing with bands are a lot of fun. I've been in some great bands with great musicians, and I still stay in touch with a lot of my old musicians that I was in bands with. But playing solo, it's just you up there. It's just you and against the crowd. You know, it's
I like that.
it's like when you play golf. You're not playing against another player. You're playing against the course. So when I play, it's just me and the crowd. I'm playing against the crowd, and you gotta know what the crowd wants and play to the crowd, and you find that. And I guess it may be true with the band too. But when you're up there singing, find one person out there that's really listening to you, and just sing to that one person. That's what I've learned to do.
That's really interesting. I've heard that kind of counsel told by a lot of other folks over the years. You hear that if you watch American Idol or The Voice or these reality singing shows.
Yes.
So another question, you mentioned going to Oklahoma City. What's your travel radius? How far do you go, and do you do any travel where you're really headed out at a distance?
I will travel anywhere, anytime, as long as they make it worth my while. I went to Oklahoma City and it was a corporate party. It was a conference, what it was, and they had a cocktail hour on the first day, and they hired me to play that. I've gone to Lincoln, not Lincoln, but Omaha, Nebraska. I've done a party up there. I had some people fly me up to Oregon here a few years ago to play a wedding for them. Flew me up first class, and I rented a guitar from up there, and a nice talking meeting. They rented a PA system for me. I felt like a star,
Fly out dates, and I've only done a few of those over the years, but they are a blast, aren't they?
Oh, they are. They really are. I had fun up there. But like I say, I'll go anywhere. But mostly I stay around Dallas, Fort Worth, Texas area, Oklahoma City, Houston. I do a retirement community out in Abilene. It's coming up next month. But mostly it's around Dallas, Fort Worth.
Cool.
Tyler.
Let me ask a question. What's the best part of doing a solo show?
Oh, just to get to sing what you want to sing, and when the crowd is into it, and they show you love, and I had a lot of people compliment me and say, "Man, you sound great. We love to hear your voice. You're so easy to listen to. You don't play loud. We can still talk, And I said, "Well, I'm just providing ambiance up here, and if you like me, well," and of course I have a tip jar, but I never ask for tips. Tip me if you want. Tips are always appreciated, but never expected. And but just the thrill of being up there singing a song for people, knowing that someone likes you because you love doing what you do, And I guess if that answers your question, maybe the long way around. I don't know.
No, I think first of all, there's so much wisdom in a lot of the things that you've shared. This is the reason that, as I said, I wanted to do the podcast, and not only do it as an audio podcast, but this one will be the first of several. There'll be video podcasts, is to give people an opportunity to see kind of what's the end result. How do you feel at the end of all of this? And I feel the exact same way. I'll watch somebody's eyes when I'm playing a song, if people are getting into it, and it's like they're completely transported.
Yeah.
And that's a wonderful thing. I think most people that are listening to this, if they're entertainers at all, or they're musicians at all, they already have a talent. Okay? You really can't do what we're talking about without at least a modicum of talent. More is better, but it's not essential. But I think that it's wonderful when you're able to share that talent. The Savior talked in the New Testament about, the people who don't share the talent is taken and given to somebody else. And I think it's important for us, if we have a talent, to use it. And so in a typical month now, as I said, you're still grinding away, working a lot. How many shows do you work in an average month?
Oh my gosh! I bring it up. Let's see. I'm looking at my calendar right now on my phone, and there's 31 days in May, and I have 1, 2, 3. I've had 4 days off in May.
Wow.
The rest of them are all booked up, and I play, restaurants and wineries, and I do Christian music also. I play sometimes in my church. I hadn't played there in a while, but by looking at June's pretty much booked up. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I got 6 days off in June.
Okay.
The rest of them are all booked up.
So podcast listeners, this is a working professional musician, okay? And I mention this because this is a big, big deal. And it's interesting because I'm really glad, again, that we're able to do this back and forth today to talk about this, because in addition to playing shows, which I do, I also do voiceovers and I also teach. And of course, we're doing the podcast. But for folks like yourself, you are a full-time working professional musician.
Yes. I did it. I pretty much did it full time for most of my life. I mean, I was fortunate enough where I worked with, in my dad's business, my dad and my brother's business. So I was able to work, have a so-called, I guess, day job doing that, but then I'd go sing at night. Now I can do it full time now, just devote full time to it. This is all I do. I do work part time for my sister. She has a clinic, and I'm kind of a handyman. She needs something done. So.
But the bottom line is that you have supported yourself your entire adult life by playing and singing.
Yes.
And
never made it big time, but I'm doing what I love. And if you do what you love, you don't have to work a day in your life. Well, it can be work, but it can also be so rewarding. And there's musicians out there that play various instruments or whatever. You know how rewarding it can be. It really is. It's reward like no other. It really is.
So we'll do a real quick little equipment jaunt. I remember having this conversation with Yancey Stevens, and he says all he drags on his gig is a guitar and a harmonica. And I take it you're carrying a little bit more than that. But what does that look like for you in a typical solo show?
Well, I have a guitar, and I usually sit on a stool when I play my solo show. When I play with my band, I usually stand. But I have several guitars. I have a Taylor, and I have some Takamine. They just bought me a brand new McPherson carbon fiber guitar, and that's an amazing guitar. I cannot put it down. It's just incredible. I have several different PA systems. Is that what you're getting at? Is that the question?
Yeah. Just kind of what it takes for a guy that's a working pro like yourself that's working and saying, well, I've got 6 days off this month, or I've got 4 days off. It's a busy month or whatever. What does it take to do that? And you mentioned several PA systems, so I'm assuming that you match that to depending upon how big a venue.
Depending on the size of the venue or the crowd I play to, I have an Electro Voice Evolve 50, which is one of those towers like a Bose.
I've got the EV30, so I know exactly what you're talking about.
Well, I pretty much keep that in my truck all the time. Then I have a couple of smaller speakers too I can use depending on the situation. Sometimes I have a couple of guitar amps, and sometimes I just play through a guitar amp that has a vocal input to it, vocal jack to it. And you don't have to have all this elaborate equipment and have it speakers everywhere to sound good, especially with the equipment they're making today.
Yes, thank goodness. Thank goodness. Yeah, absolutely.
I've lightened my load a lot.
Wonderful. Pause that for just a moment. This is the end of podcast 1 with my friend John Byron Haynie. I'm Riding Wilson, and we'll see you more with the next one.